Do you want me to take a break? Is it time? Is it time to take a break? Yeah? Do you want to go outside? Do you want to go outside? You want me to throw the ball? Okay, let's go. Una. This is a thing that... The Book of Eli was the first movie where I really used digital a lot. And that was because the Hughes brothers, the directors, Albert and Alan Hughes, really were going for a certain look. And so I was the concept artist. But I was here in North Carolina going through the script with Albert, who lives in Prague. And we would just work on Skype and then go through the script, and I'd pick out scenes that I was inspired by. He'd do the same. I'd do a rough drawing of what maybe that shot could look like, send it to him. And it was really great to be able to draw stuff on the Cintiq because I could do it quickly and it would be on the computer. I could share my screen. I could show him, some ideas. And it was like we were working together, which was really cool. So being able to draw in real time and have him see it was really good. I'll often start working on a movie before it's even cast. So I started on it before Denzel Washington was even the actor in the movie. So part of what I'll do is, to get an actor excited about it, we'll do these paintings, or to get more funding, or to get the studio behind it. I did a painting of Eli walking into town. It's like an old Western, but it's this post-apocalyptic setting. Once we've kind of figured out the shot and the angle and the rough composition, then I'm figuring out what are the costumes, what's the kind of the color scheme, what do the people look like, what kind of weapons do they have, what kind of cars, what kind of, it's so fun. And then, running all this stuff by Albert, one of his comments would be like, well, can we make everything darker, dirtier, stuff like that? And that's like, I'm so glad I was working digital on that, because then I could go in and add some textures, play with the levels, and also work in layers. So when I'm working in layers, I could draw, different elements and different layers. If I wanted to, like pull focus on something, I could put it on a different layer, tweak the colors, the lighting, stuff that was way more time consuming doing it traditionally with analog tools. After doing all that stuff for maybe half a year or so, then, so many months later, you see it actually like built, in the desert, New Mexico, and all of a sudden it's real. And there's a scene where there's this scary couple live in a house, and there's these trucks with armor, and there's the windmill, and everything that was in the drawings and paintings that I did that were, it was all of a sudden it was real, So that was really cool. All we knew in the beginning was I was going to do something with Microsoft, and it was going to be some sort of storytelling, and we were going to use the internet, and that was all we knew. And I thought, well, we need somebody who can kind of plant seeds that can come to fruition later, and maybe there's some audience participation and all that kind of stuff, and somebody who thinks very visually. So I was immediately like wishing we could get Edgar Wright to write it, and to really kind of, take control of this thing. Luckily, we both wanted to work together, so it worked out, and we were able to do this animated series. But yeah, that was another example of me being able to work digitally on the Cintiq. It was a combination of like comics, games, animation kind of language. And I had, a couple guys in LA building 3D models for me based on my sketches, and then I'd have, an animator in Philadelphia, then my sound guy was in London, and the composer was in Belfast, and Edgar was always flying back and forth between Los Angeles and London. JP drew his part on paper. I've drawn and colored my part on the Cintiq, and Don built his robot in 3D Studio Max, and so we're all using different tools, put it all together. It's great. It's another thing with this job is you're always investing in new tools and stuff. So I got the Cintiq, and it took me a while to feel comfortable and confident with it. And then once I finally did, I just never, I never went back to the tablet. I just loved it. It was very intuitive. I liked drawing using the brushes and everything, and it felt like, I was painting. So when I would do a painting, scan it in, I'd pull it up on the Cintiq. I could touch things up. If I wanted to do revisions on something, like Warner Brothers would have me do a revision on an actor or something, or you had to tweak a likeness, or, rather than having to paint it and then scan it in and patch it in, or, whatever, I could just almost always do it on the Cintiq. It still works. The thing is kicking ass. But Kyle Webster, who makes Photoshop brushes for Adobe, he came over to my house and was in the studio, and I'm like, yeah, man, none of these brushes are like working. Like, there's all these tilt ones and stuff. And he says, well, that's because your Cintiq is so old. You've been using this thing for 12 years, And I'm like, yeah, this is my baby. And he's like, I think it's time to upgrade.